Hi, hello, morning, and welcome to my channel. Today, let us discuss about summary of one of the best books ever you may heard.
Kuan Yew's own story of Singapore's incredible journey, and we're going to distill the core strategies that turned a tiny, vulnerable island into a global powerhouse.
This one quote really says it all, doesn't it? It captures the brutal reality Singapore was facing right at the beginning. This wasn't about thriving or being prosperous, it was simply about surviving. For Lee Kuan Yew, being ordinary was basically a death sentence. This idea, this need to be exceptional, became the engine for every single decision that came next. So, how did this all start? Well, it wasn't with some grand, triumphant declaration of independence. No, it was actually with a painful, shocking expulsion. In 1965, Singapore became what you might call an accidental nation, kicked out of Malaysia completely against its will.
And if you look at this timeline, it was just one crisis after another, each one compounding the last. All that hope from 1963 was just shattered by the separation in '65. Then, just when they were trying to get their bearings, Britain announces it's pulling out its military, which, by the way, was pretty much Singapore's entire defense. The island was left feeling totally exposed, like it just wasn't viable.
Okay, so when you're facing threats like that, what do you do first? For Lee Kuan Yew, the answer was absolute. You establish order. Before you can even think about the economy or social progress, the nation has to be secure. Period. Secure from threats both outside and inside.
So, how do you build an army when your culture pretty much looks down on soldiering? There's this traditional Chinese saying that basically means a good man doesn't become a soldier, just like you don't use good steel to make a nail. The government had to completely flip that mindset on its head. They had to make military service a national duty, a point of pride, and change the image of a soldier from some colonial enforcer to our citizen protector.
And the battles weren't just external. To get the foreign investment they desperately needed to survive, Singapore had to be stable, it had to be predictable. And that meant taking on militant, communist-led unions, passing some really tough labor laws, and maybe most important of all, building a government that was ruthlessly, completely free of corruption. No exceptions.
All right, with a foundation of security being built, the next massive challenge was the economy. And here, Singapore just threw out the popular playbook. They carved their own path, creating what Lee Kuan Yew called a fair society, not a welfare society. Now you have to remember, this was a radical idea at the time. So many new nations were looking to build these big European-style welfare states, but Lee Kuan Yew saw it as a trap. He truly believed that when the government becomes the main provider for everything, it just erodes a person's own drive to work, to succeed, and it creates this cycle of dependency. So instead of government handouts, they created something called the CPF, the Central Provident Fund. It's a mandatory savings scheme for everyone. See, this wasn't the government giving you stuff, it was a system that made you save for your own future. Your CPF money funds your retirement, your healthcare, and, this is key, it helps you buy your own home, giving every single citizen a real, tangible stake in the country's success. So, did this tough, self-reliant approach actually work? Well, the numbers speak for themselves. In 1965, Singapore's GDP was about 3 billion Singapore dollars. By 1997, it was 46 billion. That is a 15-fold increase in just over 30 years. I mean, it's an almost unbelievable story of economic transformation. And you know what makes that number even more powerful? This admission from the man himself. Even Lee Kuan Yew was surprised by just how successful they were. It really hammers home how dire things were at the start and just how incredible their achievement really was. Okay, so you've got security, the economy starting to grow, but the third, and maybe the hardest challenge was still there. How in the world do you turn a fractured collection of immigrants into a single, unified people? I mean, really think about that question. This was the fundamental social problem. You had a population divided by race, by language, by religion, with basically no shared history to bind them all together. So a new common Singaporean identity had to be deliberately, carefully engineered. And this was their blueprint. Step 1, housing. You physically mix everyone together in public housing blocks using ethnic quotas to make sure no racial ghettos could form. Step 2, language. You make English the neutral common language for business and government, so no single ethnic group gets an unfair advantage. And step 3, the environment. You launch a huge campaign to make the entire nation clean and green, something everyone could take pride in and feel a shared sense of belonging to.
This quote here, it really shows the genius behind that housing policy. It was never just about shelter. By making it possible for almost every family to own their own home, especially families whose sons were serving in the army, it gave every citizen something real, something concrete to defend. They had skin in the game.
So when you pull all this together, that focus on security, the self-reliant economy, and this forged national identity, what you get is the unique Singapore model.
And the software running that model, you could say, was the set of core principles, a relentless pragmatism. They only cared about what worked, a strict meritocracy, so the best people got the jobs, an absolutely incorruptible government to maintain trust, and a willingness to make painful decisions today for a better tomorrow.
But we're going to end with this, a question from Lee Kuan Yew himself. And it's a really striking thought, isn't it? He's admitting that the very system he built on pragmatism and adaptation will have to adapt itself if it wants to survive. And it leaves us wondering, what does the next chapter for Singapore actually look like?
If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and comment. Thank you.